All right, guys, this is like seconds after the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley fight. And if you're coming to my channel because of my recent content and feel like this is out of the way, this channel was first started critiquing boxing and mixed martial arts and always giving my opinion after major fights. And I wanted to give my opinion after this as someone who practiced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts and have written columns for both boxing and mixed martial arts. The biggest thing that propelled me to make this video tonight is that I don't think that Tyron Woodley should fight anymore. And this comes from one of those like sad predicaments when after the fight, I needed Tyron to feel that he lost. I needed Tyron to not be extremely happy that he won. I needed Tyron not to raise his hand. I needed Tyron to feel that he did not put enough output out for this fight. And also learned a lot of things about Jake Paul in this fight that I couldn't learn. So from starters, if I were to go into Tyron Woodley, his last 4 losses in the UFC, I'll critique 3 of those losses. They all came from the lack of input. You cannot be a shorter fighter pressing the action only to wait to counter for one shot. You are setting yourself up for failure to lose every round, and that's the same thing I saw in the Jake Paul fight. Any novice boxer would have realized that they needed to do more output. And one of the things that worried me, it didn't matter if Floyd Mayweather trained him or Floyd Mayweather got a friend to train him, was the fact that his longtime trainer, who is his friend, always gave Tyron good instructions during each round during his UFC losses, that he needs to do more, that he's practically yelling and screaming at Tyron Woodley. And while doing this, Tyron Woodley would go out in the next round and barely do any work. That's why I only talk about 3 of the last 4 losses. His last loss in the UFC, I loved his last loss because if you're going to go out, that's how you go out. You press the action and you go in for the kill. You recognize that you're in a dire situation and you go out there. Tyron Woodley did all of us a favor in making this last 8 rounds, though, as I didn't know what to make of Jake Paul. He fought people that were not credible in boxing, but what worried me was the amount of money that Jake Paul had. With the amount of money he had, he can fly people down to Puerto Rico or wherever they were training, and he has stated over and over and over again that he has been going at it with professional boxers. Him being 6'1", 24 years old. My worry was never his fights. My worry was never his knockout power, as people put it. My worry was the training that he was receiving over and over again with the amount of money that he had, sealing himself off from anything, putting in those rounds to become better. And I needed to see that. My critique of Jake Paul is that he is not as great as he think he is. He only survived this fight due to the lack of output of Tyron Woodley. Had Tyron Woodley pressed the action even more, even come in with a looping left that he had open the entire night, or a right underhand uppercut what he had the entire night. He had the right uppercut due to the fear that Jake Paul had in his overhand. Tyron threw this one time and he landed cleanly. But he didn't do it again. He didn't press the action. And what I couldn't figure out is that everybody watching saw how Jake Paul was getting very tired. Jake Paul was open for any boxer to destroy this man. I will give Tyron Woodley credit for something I saw that should have been credited to him, and it wasn't. Tyron Woodley knocked down Jake Paul. If someone punches you and you're only being held up by the ropes, that is a knockdown. It gets worse for Jake Paul. Not only was he only held up by the ropes, but in the slow motion replay, it shows that while he was held up by the ropes, he actually took his glove and grabbed the rope. He grabbed the rope to maintain himself. That is as clear a knockdown that was never counted, that I will put in the category of Zab Judah getting a knockdown over Floyd Mayweather. He hit Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd Mayweather looped down, and his glove clearly touched the mat. According to the rules of boxing, both of those were clear knockdowns. The problem for Tyron Woodley is I only gave him 2 rounds. So if I gave him 2 rounds, and that's one of the rounds, and I made it 10-8, to me, he still lost the fight 2 rounds to 6 due to inactivity. That is it. I didn't see anything special from Jake Paul. I didn't see anything that made me feel that he is a professional boxer, let alone that he can handle anyone in the amateur circuit going for a golden glove. So showing me the 8 rounds. If you were somebody going against Jake Paul and you was wondering, is he going to last? Is he going to keep doing this? The split second he fights a real fighter, if he does not increase or get a lot better than what he is now, he is for sure going to lose the fight. So far, it's been a lot of older guys. Everyone has been short. No one has been over 5'9". Maybe Tyron is the tallest person that he's ever fought, but he fights a lot of older, shorter guys that has no experience in boxing, and it's holding him up. What really upset me about Tyron was after the fight when it was time for him to speak and him being so defiant on the rematch. That scares me, because if you think that little output that you did won you the fight, then there's no reason for me to watch the rematch. I would much prefer to watch the rematch had Tyron grabbed the microphone and said, I was this close. Remember Sugar Shane Mosley? Floyd Mayweather beat him a lot, but he almost knocked out Floyd Mayweather. Sugar Shane Mosley said I was this close. He never said he won the fight. He said it was this close. If Tyron would have came and said I was this close, so what can happen in the rematch? Maybe I'd be more enticed to see it. But to know a man feels that lack of output won him the fight, I have no interest in watching this rematch. That is 4 fights, 5 losses. The final loss in his UFC to Luke, I hope I'm Luke, or Luque, I can't pronounce his last name, but the last guy that beat Tyron, I love that fight. But the 3 losses before that and the loss to Jake Paul shows me a shorter guy that wants to press the action only to wait. There was something that happened in the 6th round where Jake Paul bent down, looked at Tyron, and threw a punch. You're losing the fight. You're pressing the action. No person should be allotted that amount of time. That let me know everything I need to know. This fight could have went 12 rounds. Jake was going to win him. There was no sense of urgency in Tyron. I feel, looking at this fight, that it was less about Jake Paul that won the fight, and it was more about Tyron that loses a fight. Typically, when fighters get older, they're more reluctant to throw. It's just what happens in our brain and our psyche. You think about when you were younger and you'd be so happy to get on a big ride at Disney World or Six Flags. But when you get older, you get on those rides and you start thinking about all these equations of what may happen. So you're more reluctant to do it. That's what I see in Tyron Woodley. And no boxer or no trainer can do that for him. And I don't think that's nothing that's going to change. It is too much of a lack of output that I don't foresee him winning a fight unless he does drop a person. When he says that he almost knocked Jake Paul through the ropes, if the ropes were higher, yeah, you're right. If the ropes were higher, ropes were lower, if Jake Paul didn't have anything, if Jake Paul was in the center of the ring, he would have knocked Jake Paul straight out on the canvas. But I don't think it was an incredible knockdown. And this is the biggest problem with Tyron. If they were in the center of the ring and he would have knocked down Jake Paul would have went flying to the mat and he would have fell. But I think that it was the kind of power that Jake Paul would have got up from. If it was any boxer in the ring, doesn't even have to be professional. If it was a Golden Glove amateur and Jake Paul would have got up, or Jake Paul got off those ropes, they would have applied the amount of pressure that was necessary and take the amount of risk to get him up out of there. And Tyron Woodley doesn't have that in him. So for that purpose, I think that Tyron should hang him up. Or if he decides to do a contract and get this tattoo and do this last fight, it's good for him, it's good for his mom, it's good for his family, for a final payday. I'm not going to knock a man for a payday. But as far as being a competitor, it is not physical. He looks great. It is mental. It's what's up here. And he doesn't have what it takes to take the amount of risk that he clearly still physically has to make this last and make him be a credible fighter. So that's my 2 cents about the fight, and it's been real. I'll see you guys next time.